Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is I, Andy, the man with the backwards baseball cap, bringing it back since the 90s. I miss the 90s. I miss wearing my hat backwards. I miss Smash Mouth and All Star. But we're going to live in the 2020s. And I was this morning wanting to sit down and record a video for you guys. I'd already done one earlier this morning, but I wanted to record a second one. I was sort of struggling for what I wanted to talk about, and a song came on Spotify. Spotify recommended this song to me, and I thought, holy shit, the lyrics are literally perfect because it's basically what every single one of you guys and girls are asking from me when I talk about honesty, and I talk about bravery, and I talk about taking a leap of faith and taking some action and going out there and working on your goals. So the song is called Promise Me by Rootkit, and it's sort of like a drum and bass / almost dubstep song, like EDM electronic song. And the lyrics are absolutely amazing because they're literally perfectly exactly what a lot of you feel. So the lyrics start out, I keep to myself because honesty scares me. Can any of you relate to that? Relating to the bit about honesty being quite scary. And it was for me when I first started being honest and just saying what I wanted. I don't open up, instead I suck it up. That's pretty fucking relatable, isn't it? I convince myself since truths don't come out easy that maybe they're the remedy, or they're the remedy. Yeah, since truths don't come out easy, aren't they the remedies? Yeah, I say this a lot. A lot of the time, a lot of you guys and girls have this big fear of telling the truth, of being honest, of being upfront, and being vulnerable. And a lot of men in particular really struggle with that word vulnerable. And they go, vulnerable, isn't that weak? Isn't that cowardly? Wouldn't that mean I'm not courageous? And you can kind of think about it, kind of like this song is saying here at the end. Since truth and being vulnerable isn't necessarily easy, wouldn't that be the definition of courageous? Like, isn't one of the most masculine things you could do just be or being fucking honest, saying how you feel, saying what emotions you're feeling, keeping it real and saying to the other person, I'll be real, I'm nervous right now. Or I'll be real, I don't really know what I'm doing. Or I'll be real, I haven't had much experience with this. I'm going to give myself permission to suck and I'm going to do the best that I possibly can. That is the most courageous thing that you could ever freaking do. And since truth can be a little bit of a challenge at the start, it eventually becomes pretty freaking easy when you've done it enough. But since it can, be a little bit of a challenge and maybe it doesn't come out easy at the start, maybe that's the fucking remedy. If everybody else is going around in life hiding their truth selves, not being authentic, not being real, putting on this fucking mask and worrying about what other people think, maybe the remedy, maybe the answer to an amazing, beautiful, abundance-filled life is to tell the truth. That's why I talk about honesty and truth all the time. So the song goes on to say, if I'm going to be honest, promise me it won't hurt. And that is what I wanted to spend most of today talking about with you guys and girls. I make no promises to you that you will never, ever, 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 ever feel hurt just because you were honest. Sometimes it can be very scary being very open and opening your heart up and talking about your insecurities or talking about your fears or asking for help or any of these things. Sometimes when you're honest, you will pour your heart and soul out to someone and you'll, maybe with someone that you have a crush on, you'll say, hey, I'll be honest with you. I really like you and I've liked you for years. I'd love to go out on a date with you if you'd like to. They might say, I really appreciate that. That's incredibly beautiful, but I'm actually not interested, or I'm leaving the country in a couple of months and so I don't want to, build something with someone. I literally had a guy in my coaching group open up to a girl that he'd had a crush on for like 2 years. And he finally told her and she's like, oh man, thank you for telling me, but I'm leaving the country at the end of the year. So there's no point us dating for the next 2 months or 3 months. And so sometimes you might feel some emotions, you might feel some hurt, you might feel some pain, and that pain comes from your own expectations and your own stories and all of that. But regardless, yes, if you're honest, you might feel some hurt, but if you're dishonest, you will still feel hurt. It hurts to not tell the truth and then worry that the other person is going to find out the truth one day. It hurts to lie and then still have the person say no to you. So regardless, life might have some hurt in it. And the only reason that we feel hurt is because we don't know how to recontextualize it. I talked about this in my Play to Win video course. Basically, every chapter in the Play to Win video course talks about like how to reframe things and how to not feel so hurt by things and tell a different story. So this chapter here is called Everything is a Story and You're in Control of the Stories That You Tell, is talking about how to reframe hurt. So if somebody says no to you, how can you turn that into a good thing? How can that benefit you? How can them saying no to you and supposedly rejecting you actually be the best thing for you? Like, how could you become a stronger, happier, more secure, more stoic person? There's this chapter here on failures, setbacks, and stress. What to do if somebody says no to you? What to do if you feel hurt? What to do if you're honest and you open up and then you still feel a little bit hurt? There's this chapter here, overcoming fear, limiting beliefs, and self-doubt. I talk about how to overcome your fear of being hurt. You know, like this song's lyrics where they're talking about, I have this fear of opening up and being honest. Promise me it won't hurt. This chapter is literally how to let go of that fear so that you don't need someone to promise you that it won't hurt. You don't need Andy to say, I promise you it won't hurt. You're like, bro, if it hurts, I'll be fine. This chapter here is called Everything That Happens to Me Is Good. Again, talking about that same concept of hurt, like you feeling hurt, can be a good thing. And then this chapter here is playing to win instead of playing not to lose. So rather than saying, promise me it won't hurt, it's like, no, promise me or show me, teach me, or I'll teach myself how I can be okay with that hurt. Because again, if you look at the lyrics of this song, if I'm going to be honest, promise me it won't hurt. It's like, no, 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 no. Rather than saying, I never want to feel hurt, which you're probably going to feel hurt at some point in your life. Like, you're probably not going to completely eradicate hurt. If you want to do that, all of you, go and be a Buddhist monk and sit up in a monastery and study this stuff, study enlightenment, learn how to let go, all of this stuff. I mean, this is kind of the pathway that I, in my own life, am on. But even now, some things I still feel a little bit of hurt with. I'm letting go of most of it. Most of it has gone, but there are still some things where I feel hurt. And so unless you're dedicating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's your main goal, like this is my absolute main goal above everything else, unless it's your main goal, you're probably going to feel hurt at some point in your life. And so rather than saying, can you promise me I'll never feel hurt? Or can I avoid hurt at all costs, which is playing not to lose, you're trying to avoid losing. Instead, ask for the strength or figure out how to have the strength to be okay with hurt. Rather than saying, I never want to be hurt, it's more like, if I'm ever hurt, I'd like the tools to deal with that. I'd like to be able to reframe things. Like I said, the Play to Win video course is literally how to be okay with being hurt. But I really like the lyrics in this song, and I kind of like this song in general because of that vulnerability right there. You know, that beautiful vulnerability, like, look, maybe truth is the remedy. Maybe I'm going to start opening up, even though I'm scared and, you know, I don't usually open up. Instead, I suck it up. But I'm going to start like trying this honesty thing. Just please promise me it won't hurt. It's like, no, 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 no. You might be hurt sometimes, the same way that you're hurt when you lie. Like, hurt is separate from honesty. But what usually happens with most people, when you're honest and you open up, the vast majority of people are usually pretty nice about the fact that you've been honest. They're pretty respectful of that. They understand that this was a really terrifying, scary thing for you to do, and they will be relatively nice to you about it. Now, not everyone, and that's the point. You sometimes don't know how someone is going to react to your honesty or your vulnerability or your realness, or you just being upfront about what you want, or you asking for what you want. You often don't know how they're going to respond until they respond. And then people show you their true colors. Either they'll be non-judgmental or, you know, not too judgmental. They'll be pretty open-minded with you. They'll be compassionate and loving and kind, and they'll give you praise and be like, wow, man, good job opening up about this. That's something that I say to all of my coaching clients constantly. Whenever they're opening up about something that's really hard for them to open up, the first thing I say is, good job opening up about this. And then we start talking. I say the same to women that I date. When they start being honest about something that I can see as a little bit of a challenge for them, I'll say, wow, man, like, you're brave for opening up about this. This is awesome. Good job. And so most people will be like that. Some people, however, yes, they will think less of you if you're honest, because you being honest holds up a big mirror to them and shows them that they are not being honest. You might not even be intending to do that. You're just like, I'm going to practice being more honest. I'm going to practice being more raw. I'm going to practice being more real. But a lot of people will take that almost as a personal affront to them, and they will almost see it as you attacking them, or they'll feel inadequate and insecure about the fact that they're not honest, or they're not vulnerable, or they maybe lie sometimes. And so they feel very uncomfortable around your honesty. And so they might lash out. They might try and pull you down. That's called the crab bucket mentality. It's like crabs. Imagine a whole bunch of crabs in a bucket. If you ever see that, they will kind of pull each other down and none of them can escape. I don't even know if they mean to do that, but like they're kind of just like clawing at each other, I guess, because they're trying to pull themselves out, and they all just end up pulling each other down. And no one escapes the bucket. None of the crabs escape the bucket. Lots of people will be like that if you're honest. They will go, I feel fucking uncomfortable with this person changing their life and starting to be more honest and vulnerable and raw and real. And I can see all the positive benefits that they're having in their life. That makes me uncomfortable. There's a really, 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 really good book that talks about this called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And it was written by this woman who cared for people at the end of their life. Like as they're dying, she was there. She looked after them for months until they eventually died. She'd be holding their hands like as they died, as well as their family would be there as well. And there was one woman in particular that was just unbelievably negative and grumpy. And this nurse, this woman who was caring for her, is just a very optimistic, happy, loving, peaceful, energetic person. But this person who was dying, this old lady that was dying, hated the fact that this woman was happy. And at one point, she literally said to her, "Why are you so happy all the time? I can't stand it. I hate it. I wish you would just be miserable. I'm sick of you being happy." And the nurse kind of laughed at that and, let that sit there for a little bit and was like, You literally just said you want me to be unhappy. You literally just said you hate that I'm happy. You don't hate that I'm happy. You're just jealous. You just wish that you could be happy. And they had this big, long conversation over the next couple of weeks. And the old lady eventually was like, oh my God, I've been miserable all my life. I wish I could have let myself be happy, but now it's too late. I'm dying. I'm going to die in the next month or two. I wish I had let myself be happy. And so the point is, some people will fucking hate it that you're happy. They will fucking hate that you're being honest because it shows them their own insecurity. Even if you're not intending to do that, even if you're like, I don't care if you're honest or not, you can just keep being you. I say that in all of my content. I'm like, I like to be honest. I encourage my coaching clients to be because they've come to me for advice. Any of you that ask me questions and say, can I have some advice? I'm going to encourage you to be honest. And I'm going to preach about how much honesty has helped me and my clients and my friends and my girlfriend and anyone that I date and my family. And recently I talked about how it benefited my father in that video that I did where I talked about my dad finally having the courage to open up to me and start to mend that relationship between us. And so I'm going to talk about honesty, but I'm never going to tell you that you have to do it. And if you don't want to do it, don't. Probably wouldn't be liking my content in the first place, but I'm not going to preach and tell you what to do. And so even if you yourself are not being preachy and you're just like, I like being honest, some people won't fucking like that. And they will see it as like a personal affront, like I said, to them. And so they might criticize your honesty. They might try and hurt you. And so again, with these lyrics, if I'm going to be honest, promise me it won't hurt. You might feel a little bit of hurt sometimes. Someone might criticize you. People might say like, bro, you're pathetic. I've had people say that. I had a fucking YouTube comment like a couple of days ago saying that. It was on a video where I was talking about how one of my coaching clients was feeling really nervous. And so like he was going on a date and he was feeling really nervous to just kiss a woman. And so I said, bro, I never just kiss women. I ask them, can I kiss you? I don't just like fucking kiss them. What if they don't want me to kiss them? That would be weird. So why don't I just say, do you want me to kiss you? Or can I kiss you? Or I want to kiss you. Do you want to make out with me? Or you're so pretty. I'd love to kiss you. Can I kiss you? Like that's all I ever do. I didn't used to do that 5 or 6 years ago, but that's all I do these days. I'm just like, yo, you're so pretty. Can I kiss you? Like that's all I ever do. And so I said that in this video and someone left a comment saying, asking a woman if you can kiss her is like the least dominant masculine thing I've ever heard in my life. Like that's not dominant at all. And so even if you're honest, I'm honest in all my content. Sometimes people will fucking hate that. I'm honest with women. Or I ask them, I guess that's being honest, isn't it? I would like to kiss you. Can I kiss you? That's me being honest and raw and real and a bit vulnerable. It's not vulnerable for me now, but it was when I first started asking. Because, yeah, I had the same fears of like, but what if that's not masculine? Isn't it weird to ask? No, it's fucking nice. What do you mean, is it weird to ask? It's nice. It's a nice thing that you're doing for someone else rather than just fucking launching your face at them and just fucking sucking onto them like an octopus tentacle. You're asking first. You don't always have to ask if you're, in a relationship with someone, obviously, but on a first date, I like to just fucking ask. But sometimes when you're honest, some people will criticize you for that. And that might, if you don't know how to recontextualize that, or if you don't have compassion towards them, or if you don't understand or have empathy towards them and maybe why they might have said that hurtful statement, because they're probably not in a great place themselves. If you don't have that recontextualization, yeah, you might feel a little bit hurt when you're honest. And so, this video here today is me basically giving you permission, if you want to be honest, and then giving you permission, if it so turns out, to be a little hurt sometimes and to feel some emotions. We spend so much of our lives running away from emotions like they're the most terrifying, horrible, evil thing ever. Oh my God, please don't ever let me feel any fucking emotions. How dare I ever feel hurt? I should never feel offended. I should never feel in pain. Nobody should ever disrespect me. I mean, a lot of you live in America. Holy fuck, America is just a country, especially these days, where so many people are like, I should never be inconvenienced. I should never be hurt. If I'm ever inconvenienced, I'm going to sue the fuck out of someone. America is currently a very litigious society. Everybody wants to sue everybody else, or go on Twitter and complain about it, or act offended. My delicate sensibilities have been offended. How dare someone say an opinion that I don't agree with, even if they weren't even saying it to me? How dare someone exist? I should cancel them. And so there's like a big, strong sort of culture right now of people trying to avoid hurt. And the thing is, you only end up hurting yourself when you run away from hurt, because what you end up doing is making yourself very, I don't want to say the word weak, but you're not very resilient. If you run away from hurt and say to people, please promise me that it's not going to hurt. Please, I have to avoid hurt at all times. Hurt is bad, is the implied statement there. Being hurt would somehow be the worst thing in the world. Being offended would be awful. That's the statement. If you go through life like that, you're wrapping yourself up in cotton wool. You're wrapping yourself up in bubble wrap or something. And what's going to happen is life will sometimes have some ups and downs. It just does. And if you're not very good at dealing with that, if you're not very good at processing your emotions and understanding them and embracing them and listening to them because your emotions are trying to tell you something, if instead you just try and run away from your emotions and avoid them at all costs and avoid being hurt and avoid ever losing, again, I talked about this in the Play to Win video course, especially in this chapter, play to win instead of playing not to lose. If you spend your entire life avoiding losing, like avoiding being hurt, avoiding feeling any sort of negative emotion, what ends up happening is you don't fucking win. Because if you were trying to avoid being hurt at any cost, I have the 100% guaranteed strategy of never being hurt. Are you ready? Here's how you never be hurt with honesty. You sit at home, you stay on your couch, you never leave your couch, and you never look out the window. You never talk to another human being ever again. You never try and have a goal. You never try and do anything. Probably you should just kill yourself. And I'm not telling anyone to kill themselves, by the way, in case that wasn't apparent. But if your only goal is to never be hurt, the only guaranteed way of doing that is to just end your life right now. Literally. And again, I'm not telling anyone to commit suicide. I hope that comes across here. But that's the only way you have a 100% guarantee of never feeling any hurt. And even that might hurt. Probably hurts to kill yourself, right? I wanted to kill myself for many, many, many years. The only reason that I didn't when I was depressed and suicidal was because I was really scared of it hurting. So even that might not guarantee that you would never feel hurt ever again, right? Plenty of people, it's a separate discussion. So if you don't want to ever be hurt, then you can't play it. Don't play the game, literally. But if you want to win, which I think most of you want that. I don't think all of you want to sit there and just never get rejected ever again, even though that's what a lot of you say that you want. You're like, how can I avoid getting rejected? How can I avoid ever failing? How can I avoid ever having regrets? How can I avoid ever feeling hurt? How can I ever avoid feeling negative? How do I avoid never having a negative thought? That's not the game. That's playing not to lose. We're here to win. And so what you actually want is, Andy, How can I recontextualize my own pain and hurt? How can I let go of my disappointment and learn to process it? How can I be okay with losing sometimes? How can I feel like I've gotten rejected, but then move past that and step up to the plate and try again? If I swing and I miss, that's okay. How do I take another swing? What do I need to do in my headspace? What do I need to do mentally and emotionally and maybe physically as well to be able to step up to the plate and swing again with everything that I've got instead of holding back because I'm scared of losing? Like, how do I process the hurt and the emotions that life might hand me? Because those things are beautiful gifts. Again, we so often look at hurt or emotions or pain or suffering or any of that as if it's bad. And we say, I need to avoid that at all costs. And it's like, no, that could be the most beautiful thing that ever could happen to you. Again, we're not trying to avoid suffering or pain here. What we're trying to do is learn how to embrace it and be okay with it so we don't even see it as suffering anymore. We see it as a gift. We're like, wow, this is going to make me stronger. Like that saying, if it doesn't kill you, it will make you stronger. If you want a really, really, really mind-blowing, amazing book about exactly this topic, this book here, Man's Search for Meaning, by a guy called Viktor Frankl, who was a psychologist, and he went to Auschwitz, like the Nazi death camps. He was literally in there, and of all the people that went in there, for every 29 people that entered that camp that he was in, 28 of them died. And so he was the 3% that survived. And he talks a lot about how in there was so much suffering, as I'm sure you can imagine. 28 out of 29 people dying after being tortured too. It's not like they just shot them. 28 out of 29 people dying, that's probably a lot of suffering. And he talks about it in this book. And what he said is he realized it was not about reducing suffering in life. It was about increasing your ability to handle the suffering, to recontextualize it, to look for the meaning within it. And the meaning that he found is, I am going to love and look after the other patients or the other prisoners in here and be a doctor for them. And I'm going to do like I'm going to give therapy to them so that they can try and live. I'm going to try and save as many lives as I can while I'm in here. He even gave therapy to some of the Nazis and helped some of them. And that was probably a big reason why he survived, because there were a couple, he talks about it in this book, a couple of the Nazis that he gave therapy to, like relationship therapy and other stuff like that, that then went, okay, I'm going to give this guy extra food. I'm going to look after this guy because holy fuck, he really helped me with my relationship. And so he talks about his search for meaning while he was in there. And there has to be meaning in that suffering, is something that he told himself daily. There has to be some fucking meaning here. And he found that the people that didn't find meaning in the suffering, the people that just said, this is unfair, we're in a Nazi death camp, this is awful, which, yeah, that's probably a pretty reasonable thing to think by default, right? Nobody's going to hold it against you if you're in fucking Auschwitz and you're feeling sorry for yourself and you're saying this sucks and this is awful. That was most people. He said time and time again, he noticed those were the people that died. The people that couldn't find any meaning in the suffering and were just trying to avoid the suffering at all costs, they gave up. They felt hopeless. They were like, I can't avoid suffering because you're in a Nazi fucking death camp. There's probably going to be infinite suffering in there. And they weren't able to recontextualize it and rise up to the occasion and be okay, or learn to be okay with the suffering and learn to embrace it. And he found time and time again, the way that he was able to help people most was by finding some meaning in the suffering for them. And so for some people, he would say, your only goal is to get through however long we're in this death camp for. And he ended up being in there for 3 fucking years. He said, your only goal is to get through this suffering so that you can go and tell other people about this suffering and help them be better than these Nazi people are. You like, your mission is to go and make the world a little bit better. And then for other people, he would say their mission or their meaning is, your only meaning is to get through this suffering so that you can see your wife again and your kids. That's why you're here. And he wouldn't tell people their meaning. He would ask them and they would then come up with their own meaning, and then he'd, reinforce it with them. And so for other people, the meaning was like, I'm a doctor and I need to get back to my people so I can save a bunch of lives. And he's like, that's your meaning then. Endure this suffering. Learn to be okay with this suffering. Learn to find some happiness as much as you can, even if it's just a tiny little bit of happiness here or there. learn to find some happiness in this suffering, and you will make it back to your family and your patients, and you will look after them. And so time and time again, he found that the people that survived were those who were able to find meaning in their suffering. And if this fucking motherfucker, this beautiful human being, can be in a Nazi death camp where almost everyone is, 97% of the people in there die and are tortured before they die and worked to death. If he can find meaning in that and not see that as suffering, or more to the point, see it as suffering but see it as serving a higher purpose, then we sure as fuck can find some meaning in our suffering, because none of us are in a Nazi death camp. And for all of the problems and pain and suffering that we might be feeling and working through, we're not in a Nazi death camp. There's a really, really, really good book. Look at this, got 87,000 fucking reviews. He has another book too called Yes to Life in Spite of Everything, which is basically exactly the same idea. Really, really, really good book. And I'm going to bring up one of my favorite people, Nick Vujicic. And if you don't know him, he's a Serbian Australian guy who was born with no arms and no legs. Look at that. He's got no arms and no legs. And if anyone was ever going to suffer, here's him giving like a TED talk or something. If anyone was ever going to suffer in life and not be able to find meaning in their suffering, it would be Nick Vujicic. But instead, Nick Vujicic, as the title of one of his books, he's written like fucking 7 books. The title of one of his books is Nick Vujicic is Unstoppable. Nick Vujicic just gets shit done. But he wasn't always like that. When he was a kid, when he was like 6 or 7 years old, he tried to commit suicide. He tried to drown himself in the bathtub because he felt like, I have no arms and no legs. What possible purpose could I have? God must hate me. The universe must fucking hate me. Fuck you, God. Why'd you do this to me? How come this happened to me? Why didn't this happen to someone else? Or why did this happen at all? And he struggled to find any meaning in that. And he's like, my life is just going to be suffering. I'm never going to have a girlfriend. I'm never going to have a wife. I'm never going to have anyone that loves me. I'm never going to be able to love anyone else. I can't hug anyone. I can't hold anyone's hand. I don't know if I can have sex. Like, he probably wasn't thinking about sex when he was like 6 years old. But, I'm never going to be able to do the normal things that people can do. So what meaning could my life possibly have? I'm just going to be suffering. And spoiler alert, he has a family. Here's him with his beautiful wife. Her name's like Kanye. And his 4 children, 2 of them are twins and 2 of them, the boys, are not twins. And he's incredibly happy, and he gives like motivational speeches, and he's traveled around the world, and he's done TED Talks, and he's written like 5 books. He has to write them by just speaking, and then other people write them down. This guy has done like a hike, and he's done like a marathon and shit like that. This guy's done like so much stuff by crawling, by the way. He hiked crawling. And so this guy is just an incredible human being because he was able to look at his suffering as a good thing. And it took him a little while, but he said for the longest time he would pray to God and pray to the universe and pray to other people that he wished he could have arms and legs. When he was a little kid, he'd be like, please God, please give me arms and legs. How innocent and sweet is that? But at some point he's like, wait, why am I praying for a miracle? Why don't I just be that miracle? And so from that moment when he was in school, he started trying to be the thing that he wished other people could do for him. He wished other people could help him be happy. He wished God or the universe would just give him arms and legs and make him happy. But he instead started saying, I'm going to be that miracle. I'm going to make other people happy. And so he couldn't really play sport, but he would sit there on the bench on the sidelines. And whenever somebody came off or somebody got kicked off the team or someone wasn't very good at the game, he would sit next to them and just look them in the eyes. And he would say, hey, you did a really good job. Keep practicing, keep trying. I promise you'll do better. And he said he didn't mean to, but he made some people cry with joy from saying that. And then he started giving little motivational speeches at school. And he didn't have a lot of friends, but he just said to everyone, I'm going to give a speech at like 12:30. Anyone can come if they want to and listen. And he would start giving little speeches and say, listen, I have no arms and no legs, but I'm learning how to be useful for other people. And I'm learning how to be happy. And if I can have no arms and no legs, but I don't have to feel like I'm suffering, if I can find meaning in the suffering, meaning in the fact that I don't have my arms and my legs, then maybe all of you, it's possible to be brave. And even if you're suffering something, even if you're hurting, maybe it's possible for you to be happy too. And so he started to inspire other people, and then he started to, give speeches, and he's been to prisons like 50 or 100 times and inspired people there. He's given big speeches. Like I said, he and his wife are very happy, and they're so cute together. They're like the sweetest, cutest little couple. And there's a really good book that he has that I really love. And it's this little book here. It's called Love Without Limits. He and his wife, Kanye, they wrote it together. And it's the cutest little book. And there's these, talks about how they fell in love, how they met. It's the cutest fucking story how they met. But there's like nice little photos of them like traveling together and like sitting on a yacht and cuddling. Look at them there on their wedding day. This is absolutely a man and a woman. She's incredibly brave too. She went through a lot of stuff too. But let's just talk about him for a second. This is absolutely a man who didn't just indulge in his suffering, and he didn't avoid suffering. Like, look at this picture here, the one of him like holding his baby. They had to like sticky tape the baby to him, like wrap the baby up with him. And so this is a man that's absolutely fucking living his life. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is not the person that avoids suffering. This is not the guy. Look at that cute little couple. This is not the guy that's like, oh, I don't ever want to be hurt. Please stop me from being hurt. This is the guy who's like, look, sometimes I'm going to feel depressed. He went through another period of depression later on in his life where he felt like a failure because his business was like in some debt and all of that. He pushed through that. He found meaning in that suffering too. And then he would give advice to other people and say, hey, if you're struggling with your business, here's some advice. I've been there. I understand. And so he came to see that it was part of a greater purpose. And he came to see that he was glad and grateful for his suffering, for his hurt, for his pain, because he could inspire other people. I have talked about this a lot in my own content. I was depressed and suicidal. I went to prison when I was 19. I had a little bit of a rough childhood, teenage years, and then early 20s. It was a little bit rough for me, right? And then I went through some rougher stuff later on as well. But all of that I am so unbelievably grateful for because I get to sit here and encourage and help all of you. I've coached a bunch of people that were depressed and suicidal, and I get to sit there on a call with them and be like, I've been where you are. I know exactly how you feel, or I know roughly how you feel. I've been in a similar position. What would you like from me? How can I help you? And then I can just help them in a very non-judgmental, easygoing, chill way because it's like, yeah, I felt like this for like fucking 9 years. Yeah, easy. We can work on this. Don't stress. And so I'm able to sit with them in that solely because I went through that myself. But imagine if I said I want to avoid being hurt at all costs. I don't ever want to be depressed or suicidal. Imagine if I self-medicated, and I did try and self-medicate it a lot with alcohol, porn, video games, anime, a whole bunch of shit. But imagine if I just did whatever I could to avoid hurt. Then I wouldn't have these beautiful, I guess maybe inspiring underdog stories of like the guy who was depressed and suicidal and now he's happy and he gets to wear his baseball cap backwards. I wouldn't be sitting here with a backwards baseball cap. I'd probably be sitting here with my cap on forward like a normal person. No. But I have the courage to wear my cap backwards. But do you get what I mean? I'm sure you get what I mean. The more you're able to embrace the hurt and the suffering and find meaning in it, like these beautiful people have, and I could list you 1,000 other inspiring people who felt a lot of hurt and a lot of pain and a lot of suffering and didn't run away from it. Or maybe they ran away from it for a little bit and then they turned towards it and embraced it. Another really good book on this is that book I mentioned before, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. That's this absolutely wonderful, amazing book here. And the author herself, I won't spoil anything, but she went through a little bit of a rough life, let's just say that. And she talks about it a lot in this book. And she was able to find meaning in that suffering. And a lot of her patients, like the people that she cared for as they were dying, they went through a lot of suffering. Cancer can be quite painful in many different ways. And she was able to help them find meaning in that suffering and see it as serving a greater purpose rather than just, why do I have cancer? This is so unfair. Why is this happening to me? So all of these beautiful people were able to find meaning in the suffering. And so again, to bring it back to the lyrics, if I'm going to be honest, promise me it won't hurt. No, what I will promise you is it might hurt. It might not hurt. Who knows? But either way, you will be okay. If it hurts, I promise you will be able to get through that. It might hurt. It might be a little painful. You might not know what to do. My Play to Win video course is a good place to start. Books like You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought are a pretty good place to start. There's all of these beautiful resources on how to deal with hurt. But I promise you, if you are hurt, you will be okay. If you feel sad sometimes, you will be okay. If you feel angry sometimes, you will be okay. If somebody rejects you, you will be okay. If somebody says no to you, you'll be okay. If somebody yells at you or criticizes you or hates on you, you'll be okay. If you don't get laid, you'll be okay. If you don't make a ton of money, you'll be okay. No matter what happens, I promise you'll be okay. If you say that you will be okay. But if you sit around saying it's going to hurt, it's awful, it's bad, then yeah, it probably fucking will be. It doesn't feel very good to be like, oh my God, please don't ever let me be hurt. Oh my God, I'm hurt. Ah, fuck, it's awful. As soon as you start saying that something's awful, yeah, you make it 10,000 times worse. But I promise you, again, if you use my Play to Win video course and stuff like that, I promise you, being hurt doesn't have to be a bad thing. You might in time come to see that being hurt is the most incredible thing for you because it teaches you stoicism, or you can use it as a learning experience to practice your stoicism, or to practice your resilience, or to practice being better at being hurt. Being hurt is a skill. Like literally, it's something you can improve at. Like, can I get 1% better at dealing with being hurt? Can I improve at the process of being hurt? Can I get over it a little bit or heal it a little bit faster? Can I listen to it and see what these hurt feelings are trying to tell me? Can I share it with other people and get better at the process of sharing my hurt with other people and listening to their advice? Can I get better at recontextualizing it and saying, oh, maybe I'm only hurt because I had lots of expectations and those expectations didn't come true. And maybe if I just didn't have expectations, I say all the time, I have no expectations, only curiosity. I'm just curious to see what will happen, but I don't have any expectations. If I can get to that point, maybe I won't be hurt as much. So maybe this is a really good fucking wake-up call to start practicing my letting go and my surrender and my resilience and my fucking letting go of expectations. Maybe I'll go sit in a Buddhist monastery or something and just be like, and I'll do that for a month, and that will help me let go a little bit. Maybe I'll open up my mind and stop seeing everything as good or bad. Hurt is bad. Emotions are bad. If someone says no to me, that's bad. If someone rejects me, that's bad. It's like, okay, do you want to tell us what else is good or bad? God? Because apparently we don't need God. We have your opinion of what is good and what is bad. Hurt is bad. This is bad. And that's just a process of how the mind works. Our minds want to label things as good or bad. They make it very binary or dualistic, as the Buddhists say. Psychologists call this black and white thinking. You make something black, you make something white, and you're ignoring all the gray in between. But being hurt doesn't have to be a bad thing. Being hurt could be the most beautiful gift that you're ever given if you choose to see it like that. Again, if you want my help with this, you can go to my Play to Win video course. That's down below. You can hit me up for coaching if that's something you would like. But go out there and take a little risk. Nothing bad happens if you're hurt. You just feel sad for a little while. And if you're able to recontextualize it, again, my Play to Win video course, I'm going to mention this 1,000 times. That's literally what it is about. Or you're able to share it with other people, able to share it with friends, you're able to read a book on it, able to listen to a podcast on it, able to just write it down. And then, this is something you can do, write it down and then throw that in a fire or throw that in the bin. Sometimes that really helps. You write something down and then you purge it. You let go of it by setting it on fire or throwing it in the bin or doing something like that. But there's all these different techniques of how to let go of hurt. Now, I promise you, being hurt doesn't have to be a bad thing. You might think that it's a bad thing, but that's just your fucking opinion, man.